Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 2 of What If Kaguya Fell in Love with Naruto and Joined Him. The movie, part 2 guys. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, I post a brand new series, yes you heard that correctly. Brand new series over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto Was a Perfect Experiment. So go over there and enjoy that guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Making family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. And yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, as Naruto and Sasuke was facing the toughest opponent of their life, and it was none other than Kaguya Osusuke. But yet Naruto felt something come from her, something that he never expected. Emotions. The way her son talked about her, it was like she was an emotionless being. But no, as she grabbed Naruto into a black, empty abyss, and he was able to see her life. She had called him a name, and he didn't understand why. I know he saw why though, as he saw the person she was with. Not to mention the other Osusukes. There was others like her, and Kaguya was afraid of one of them known as Momoshiki. So that was bad. There were stronger Osusukes out there that, if they came here, would be rather detrimental. And Naruto saw everything about Kaguya's life right there and then. He saw her life, he saw everything. As he was shocked, shaken, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As he saw the things that she went through to bring her to this point. Meanwhile, Sasuke was outside fighting her until she stopped, tears in her eyes. As Naruto emerged, as he walked towards her, he told her she didn't have to do this anymore. As he pulled her into a hug, catching Sasuke completely off guard. She told him that she should be locked away. As he told her no, she didn't, but she said that she had to pay for her crimes that she did. As she went too far, she nearly doomed the world once again. She was deeply sorry, immensely so, but still, she did what she did. Her mind was clouded, and now she could see because of him. As she thanked him. As Naruto felt so bad because he didn't know what happened between them, but something just changed from talking to her. It was just something shocking. And he didn't know how these feelings just pop up out of nowhere. As him and Sasuke seal her away, and they ended the sealing jutsu. As everyone was freed. As Naruto looked towards a massive orb in the sky, his eyes focused on it intensely. We then had a time skip as years passed. As Naruto was standing next to Nadia's grave, as she had died, in the pain assault. As he spoke to her, he told her that he tried the whole dating thing, but it never really worked out. He was interrupted by another Osusuke. It was Tenryou Osusuke. He didn't have eyes, as he looked towards Naruto with his empty eyes. Sasuke arrived, as Naruto told Sasuke to handle him because this guy wasn't that strong. As Naruto made his way towards a hovering spear in the air, Sasuke arrived a moment later as he told Naruto that that guy was focused on Hinata. But he handled it, after all. Osusukes were dangerous, didn't matter who they walked or what they were after. Years passed after that, as Naruto was currently the 7th Hokage as he was watching the exam taking place between Sadara and Shikadai, the son of Shikamaru and Temari, and the daughter of Sasuke and Sakura. As Naruto stood there, watching everything along with the other Kages until they were interrupted, as Momoshiki and Kinshiki arrived. Naruto vanished and grabbed Momoshiki and teleported him out of the village, as he had just seen Sasuke's fate to deal with Kinshiki, as he wasn't as strong as Momoshiki. Over the past years, they have trained intensely to be ready for the other Osusukes, so they weren't lacking in that department. But now that they were here, that meant, as he looked towards the magic orb in the sky that Kaguya was in. So yeah guys, that's basically as I thought. You guys can switch across the place, check it out for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? Naruto looked towards the massive prison that Kaguya was currently in. Can you sense him, Kaguya-chan, he said. He felt the lightest pulse of a chakra within his spear. A small smile formed on his face. Do you want to be released? He asked rhetorically, already knowing the answer. Another pulse, this one, far stronger than the one before, came out. So much so that the prison seemed to quake and tremble. One of his black balls formed into a staff, as Naruto gripped it. I'll release you shortly, Kaguya, said Naruto. I want to crush him. As a red pulse of energy was shot directly towards Naruto, he turned and slapped it away with his bare hand. The beam of energy struck the ground a second later, and a titanic explosion rocked the earth. The land quaked and shifted for several seconds due to the massive attack. As Naruto pointed his staff towards Momoshiki's position, you're not very strong. I hope you get more powerful otherwise. This will be a waste of my time. As Momoshiki flashed in front of Naruto with a red orb of chakra that resembled Naruto's giant Rasengan. I'll crush you! Momoshiki screamed out harshly. As Naruto vanished in a yellow flash, Momoshiki's eye narrowed before a boot crushed in his jaw. Blood spewed from his mouth, and due to the lapse of concentration, his orb of chakra destabilized. Before the orb could implode, pain erupted from the top of Momoshiki's head. He was sent sailing as he crashed back into the hole that Naruto first knocked him into. Before Momoshiki could move, Naruto appeared in front of him with a Rasengan, a lava Rasengan spiraling in his palm. Momoshiki's eyes widened as the Rasengan slammed into his abdomen. The lava-infused Rasengan grind and tear his flesh before Naruto forced the jutsu to explode. A tremendous geyser of lava erupted in the heavens, followed by a large shock wave. A scream then followed as Naruto embedded several black staff in Momoshiki. Naruto was surprised to see that the man was unaffected by the staff to neutralize whatever it touches. But it didn't matter though. The man would be dead pretty soon. As Naruto had another black staff in his hand as he placed it on Momoshiki's forehead. I really should just kill you now, but I promised Kaguya I would make her finish you off. Anything you want to say before you die? The short Otsutsuki grinned through blooded teeth as he spat a glob of substance towards Naruto's face. Screw you, mongrel! Naruto wiped the crimson liquid off his face. As he slowly shook his head, he raised his leg before stomping right on the man's lower jaw. As Naruto saw Sasuke coming towards him with a fat Otsutsuki on his shoulder, Naruto did not sense the man's life force. He could only assume that Sasuke had killed him. That didn't take long, said Naruto. Sasuke did not respond to his statement as he looked down towards the shorter Otsutsuki member. He isn't dead. No, he isn't, said Naruto. Sasuke dropped the larger Otsutsuki on the ground. Why, he said, as Naruto held up his right hand for Sasuke to meet the other hand sign and finish it. There was a brief moment of silence as Sasuke turned his head towards Kaguya prison. His eyes looked at the satellite in the sky as he sighed. It's been 15 years, Naruto, he said. Naruto ignored the statement as he kept holding his hand out. I don't know why I even bother, Sasuke said, as he placed his hand against Naruto's seal. The both of them flared their chakra, and the world started to shake. The giant satellite of rock started to shake apart, as giant boulders started to crash down to the earth. Several minutes passed as both men stared towards the rocks that were slowly withering away. Naruto stood still with bated breath as he felt the presence of Kaguya wash over the elemental nation. His heartbeat quickened as a final piece of rubble started to break away. His entire focus was centered on the beautiful woman that was floating motionlessly in the air. Several seconds went by as her head tilted down. Her eyes focused on Momoshiki for about a second before she turned towards Naruto as she stared directly in his eyes. As Kaguya then moved, this time Naruto was able to see her perfectly as she appeared in front of him. She craned her neck as she looked directly at him. He has gotten taller in the past couple of years as he stood 2 heads above her, as he was hovering over her. But his chakra was the same, warm, kind, comforting. You have changed a lot, she said, as Naruto looked into her beautiful, white orbs as he offered her a smile. You have not. You are still as beautiful as I remember, he said. She blinked at the compliment, not truly knowing how to reply. She enjoyed it immensely despite not showing a physical reaction to it. But Naruto was aware of her emotions, so it didn't matter if she reacted or not. I heard you, she said. Every day that you visit, asking me mundane questions, or just fill in the silence. Your visits. I appreciated them, she said. Naruto grinned softly with a gentle look in his eyes. I thought about you, he said, every single day. I don't think there was a day that went by when I did not. You expressed that several times when you visit frequently, she said. A small flush came over his cheeks, but thanks to his cloak, it was not seen, as he chuckled nervously while rubbing back his head. Why yeah, he said as he coughed awkwardly. His eyes went towards Sasuke, who looked amused by the whole situation. Anyway, I have a gift for you. As he stepped aside, I assume that this little cretin is Momoshiki. Kaguya did not verbally respond, as her gaze shifted towards Momoshiki on the ground. Her eyes narrowed, as she stared at the man. She used to be terrified of this little vermin, scared that he would devour her, scared that he would kill her just like her beloved little sister. But now that she was getting a bitter look at him and sensing the power that he held, he was weak, frail, pathetic. Her Byakugan activated as she slowly raised her hand. I will see you in hell, cousin, she said. Her tone dangerous. A bone shard flew from her finger as it pierced right in his forehead. His eyes widened as his body started to turn to ash. It only took 5 seconds for his body to be erased completely from existence. An impressive and terrifying feat. Sasuke looked towards the other Otsutsuki that was laying on the ground. Black flames covered his body immediately as Sasuke turned towards Naruto. They share a silent talk. Sasuke then vanished, leaving the two alone. Naruto was silent for a moment before turning towards Kaguya, as he blinked at the look that she was giving him. Her white orb stared directly at him. He met her gaze with no trouble though. Its cerulean orbs traveled along her delicate features. As he stepped closer, she showed no objection to the movement, and she remained silent. He took another step closer, as she did not move, as Naruto calmed himself before stepping immensely close to her. Just a breath away as she looked up at him, directly in his eyes, studying his face. A chiseled chin, thin eyebrows, sharp eyes. An attractive man he was. As Naruto's usual bold and confidence was evading him at the moment. Damn, this is hard. He was about to start again, but she placed a finger right on his lip. You need not say it, she said. I am already aware, Naruto, she said. Her tone was gentle and soft as her finger went down towards his chin. I am not sure if I can say the same, but as her hand went behind his head and ran through his spiky hair. I am willing to try, she said softly. His arms slowly circled her. She showed no signs of resisting as he dwarfed over her, encircling her. His fingers swept through her snowy white hair as he looked directly into her beautiful orbs, before she pulled his face down towards her own as their lips met together. As he was caught off guard, he never expected this so quickly. Well, after a second though, his body untensed as he leaned into it, his lips intertwined with hers, and he succumbed to the touch of a goddess, delicate, soft. Her claw-like nails went through his hair, sending tremors down his spine. A heavy blush formed on her face. As it was getting a bit overwhelming, she pulled away as she was breathing a bit heavy, her cheeks completely red. She enjoyed that very, very much. As Naruto looked into her eyes, he had wanted to do this for the last 15 years. He had dreamt about this, and this was completely better than dreams. It was amazing, beyond amazing. Time skip. What is this? Your kind call this delicacy, ice cream. As Naruto watched as Kaguya poked the frozen treat curiously. Yes, Kaguya-chan, said Naruto, as he slowly placed his own bowl of ice cream on the table, before gesturing towards her. Here, let me. She blinked as he picked her bowl up. He scooped some of the frozen treat and held it out towards her. As she looked towards him, what is it that you're doing, she asked, as she didn't understand why she was feeling so embarrassed. I'm feeding you, he said. Open your mouth, please, he said with a tiny smile. She did not move or blink for several seconds, her gaze pouring into his. You I am not a child, she said. Of course not, said Naruto, but I still want to feed you. Will you let me, he said. As Kaguya's eyes left Naruto and looked around the establishment that they were currently at, many customers were watching them. It was uncomfortable. Come on, Haim, said Naruto. Don't mind them, focus on me. Look at me, he said. Her pale eyes shifted towards the delicacy on top of the spoon as she slowly opened her mouth. She watched a soft smile came on his face. She felt heat spread across her face as the spoon moved closer to her. As Naruto placed the spoon inside her mouth and grinned at her embarrassed expression. A few seconds went by as he slowly pulled it from her mouth. It was spotless. That Kaguya's expression was shocked as she looked towards the bowl of ice cream. Give me more, she demanded. As Naruto chuckled as he scooped more and feed it to her, spoonful after spoonful, as she showed little sign of stopping. The quiet clinking of the spoon made in contact with the glass bowl filled the silence. As it was now finished, she slowly took his hand and pushed it towards his own bowl, gesturing for him to feed her his own. After a brief moment of laughter, he did, as he continued to feed her with an easy smile on his face. He didn't mind all that much, as it seemed like it would be her favorite, as it was now finished. As she looked into his eyes, "Can I have more?" she said. How could he say no to her? So he continued to feed her ice cream. They went through almost every flavor in the shop. Her favorite was chocolate. Now she had a pleased smile on her face as she rested against a chair. Several dozen empty bowls were stacked in front of her in a neat, orderly way. Kaguya watched a waitress that was collecting the bowls, so he could sense the woman's fear and anxiousness at being in such close. It was a bit disheartening. I hope you enjoy the treat," the waitress said, as she bowed, as Kaguya could practically taste the young woman's fear. Before Kaguya could respond, the woman quickly made her way off. As she watched the woman went behind the kitchen, her face was blank but her eyes showed disappointment, sadness, and regret. "Hey," as she felt something caress her arm, as she looked towards Naruto. "Just give it time," he said. She didn't bother to respond to his statement. She just looked towards his hands that were stroking her own. She wanted to believe him, but Naruto had revealed about a month ago who exactly she was. A bold thing to do. It had been a rather arduous time, not just for her but for Naruto as well. Many people in the elemental nation had questioned his sanity, but she did not really blame them. Sasuke stepping in and put a stop to that. He was a bit cold, not like Naruto at all, but he was Naruto's brother. In all but blood, he had made sure to remind them all this selfless act that Naruto did, that paved the way for peace. Only those that were truly close to Naruto had accepted his relationship with her. The others decided to keep their opinions to themselves, but that was a wise move on their part. It would do the world no good if 2 out of the 3 strongest beings in the elemental nation were angered. Politics had been the major headache for her lover, and she had apologized a lot about it. Her actions, her existence in the first place, their relationship, etc. He took all of it on with an easy smile, as he told her she was worth it all. It meant so much, but at the same time she was entirely responsible for them. "Are those horns on your head?" She was snapped from her thoughts as she turned towards a young girl. She could be more than 6, as she was looking at her with white eyes. She had navy blue hair, and she had white eyes as well, showing that she was a Hyuga descent. She had a pair of red markings that looked like triangles on her cheeks, and canines, rather sharp canines. The little Inazaka Hyuga was wearing a fluffy jacket with a wolf coating and a black skirt. The entire establishment went completely still and quiet at the little girl outburst. Several seconds passed with Kaguya looking at the girl before she responded, "Yes, they are indeed horns." The little girl bounced excitedly as she came closer to the table where Naruto and Kaguya sat. Her hand grabbed the table as she bounced up and down. "Are they real?" she said, a smile on her face. Once again Kaguya replied in that same calm tone. "Yes," she said. The girl seemed to get even more excited. "Can I touch them?" she asked. She rose her hand despite being too short to even touch a woman's shoulders. Kaguya seemed taken aback by the question, as she pulled back. She blinked several times as the girl tried to grasp her horns. "Himawari-chan." The little girl paused as she turned towards the man that called her name. "Uncle Naruto," she yelled, as she ran and jumped towards him, as Naruto caught the speeding rocket known as Himawari, while laughing slightly. "Where are your parents?" he asked, as she sat down in his lap. Himura grinned from her position. Mom was too slow. I wanted ice cream, but she was being a slow poke, she said, with a pout in her face. Naruto patted her head. I understand, but you can't run off like that, he said. You will scare your mother if you keep on doing it. Do you like making her worry? Her demeanor shifted into a sad one. No, she said, in a quiet tone. Then why do you run off, huh? Said Naruto. As her head sank low. I don't know, she said. Looks like I'm gonna have to tell your mother, Himura, said Naruto. A smirk came on his face as she looked around with shock. Despite her mother already knowing that she would have run off, she was shocked. Little kids were so gullible. You can't, I'll get in trouble. And then mommy won't let me get ice cream anymore, she said. Said Naruto as he glanced towards his lover for a moment. I don't know, he says. He looked back down towards Himawari. Maybe if you ask Kaguya-chan nicely, she will help you. Kaguya blinked as the girl turned towards her with a pointed gaze. She clasped her hands together in a rather adorable gesture as she bowed her head. Please, please help me, princess. I want ice cream. Kaguya was silent for a moment as she looked up towards her lover's gaze. There was that gentle smile that he always have while talking to her. Kaguya averted her gaze as she looked towards Himawari. It will be my pleasure, she said. Himawari jumped out of Naruto's lap as she cheered. She then moved towards Kaguya, but before she could reach, a voice called out. Himawari-chan, what did I say about running? You scared me half to death. 3 pair of eyes turned as they looked towards the rather busted Hyuga woman. Her navy blue hair fell to her lower back, and the casual sweater that she wore did little to hide her figure. As Kaguya looked down towards her kimono, as she frowned a bit, was her kimono too boring? Perhaps. Perhaps a change was good. I'm so sorry. Himawari really loved ice cream. Naruto smiled as he waved away the apology. It's fine, Hinata, he said. She reminded me of myself at that age. As he chuckled, he glanced towards Kaguya, who was studying Hinata's outfit. He didn't comment on that as he smiled towards Hinata. How are you and Kiba doing, he said. Hinata smiled back as Himawari grasped her hand while swinging back in front. We've been doing good, she said. She then glanced towards Kaguya. Are Kaguya and yourself doing well, she said. No problems, I hope. As Kaguya heard the concern in the woman's tone. This woman was head over heels for Naruto when they were younger. After his brief cinch in a dating scene, and his relatively short time with the woman, he decided it was not for him. They had been involved for a few months before ending the relationship and they stay as friends. Said Naruto. The usual backhanded compliments and slight remarks here and there as he glanced towards Kaguya. But other than that, it's perfect, he said. Hinata glanced towards Kaguya. Are you well, Kaguya-sama, she said. As Kaguya blinked at being addressed as she turned towards Hinata. As well as I can be, considering all that has happened, she said in a rather subdued tone. If you ever need someone to speak with, I wouldn't mind lending that ear for you, said Hinata. The woman's gesture was appreciated, but ultimately unneeded. You need not have to go out of your way for me. Thank you, regardless. Before Hinata could respond, a group of envoy appeared. Hokage-sama, the bird mass member spoke. They are here, he informed. As Naruto slowly got to his feet, they weren't supposed to arrive for another week, he said. But, as he held out his hand towards Kaguya, duty call, Haim, he said. She slowly took his hand, as she got to her feet, as the hand slowly went on her lower back. Do you want me to walk you home, he said. I will be fine, my love, she said. She had a hint of embarrassment on her cheeks, after all. She was not used to such public, affections. Not that she minded or anything though, as Naruto knew how she felt about public displays of affection, as he placed a gentle kiss on her head. As he meant to pull away, but she pulled him back. He looked towards her surprised as she placed a kiss on his lip. It was quick and slightly awkward, but he did not care about the specifics. He was just surprised that she had been the one to initiate it. After a moment, she averted her gaze as her face was all red. I will be home as soon as possible, Haim, he said. She swallowed her anxiety. And I'll be waiting for you, she said. He gave another friendly smile as him and the envoys vanished in a yellow flash. As Kaguya stood there, she felt naked, like she was the center of attention for everyone, that Naruto was no longer there. She refused to look up to see the gaze of resentment, fear, and hatred. She tried with all her might to push out that thought, but she could not. And she fled. A distorted portal appeared as she went right through it, running away from judgmental looks. Time skip. You've been here for several hours. as Kaguya's eyes were looking towards the stone in front of her, the gravestone. And you've been observing me for just as long, she said. Sasuke stood several feet behind her. As he looked at her kneel form, he was quiet for a moment until he spoke. A safe haven, he said. She was quiet for several moments as she looked towards gravestone. Off, Tsunade Senju. Did he ask you to watch over me, Kaguya asked. As Sasuke came closer. Call it a favor, he said. You do not strike me as a man that does things graciously, out of your heart. Despite how the statement sounded, Kaguya meant no disrespect towards Sasuke, and he understood what she meant. You would be correct, Sasuke says. He stood beside her. And the reason why you're here, she said. Sasuke was silent for several minutes, as he too looked at the grave that Naruto made for Tsunade. You're too harsh on yourself, Sasuke said. Kaguya paused. Whatever she expected to say, it was definitely not that at all. She slowly turned as her pale eyes stared into his mismatched orbs for a moment. I solely am responsible for the suffering that plagued this world. My selfish desires snuffed out the life of innocence, the pure, and the wicked. Her gaze hardened as she looked into his Rinnegan. Whatever advice that you have for me, keep it to yourself. I will forever live with this burden and knowledge. I do not deserve a second chance. I do not deserve happiness. I deserve nothing, she said, as her chakra started to leak. Except for Sasuke and Tsunade grief, everything else started to turn to dust. The wave of her chakra crushing everything around except for the grave and Sasuke. Yet Sasuke stood there, unnerved by her pulse of chakra. And yet, he said calmly, Naruto believed otherwise. Before she could say anything, Naruto flashed right beside her, in his cloak. As he crouched down beside her as he extended his hand. Come, Heim, he said. Her anger melted away instantly. As she took his hand, she felt like she was standing on clouds. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer at Tsunade grave. Instead, she was in Naruto's mindscape, standing face to face with his Biju. The fox was asleep. As she turned towards Naruto with an expectant gaze. Privacy, he said. Or do you understand what you want to ask? As he sat on the surface of the water. As she sat beside him, after he patted right there. Her hands folded neatly in her lap. As she focused on him alone. Talk to me, Kaguya-chan, he said. What is wrong? A small frown came on her face. As she looked into his eyes. What was wrong? Naruto knew what was wrong. I can't help you if you don't talk to me, Heim, he said. She struggled to voice her problems. After several minutes of silence, she finally spoke up. Why? Her voice was small and unsure as she spoke up. Why have you gone so far from me? Why do you continue to do so? Tears of frustration started to drip down her face. I don't deserve any of this. I've accepted that I will never be accepted in this world. My hands are stained. I'm a monster. This regret, this pain, she said as she clenched her fist. I never wanted this. I can't do this anymore, she said. There was complete silence, as tears fell down her face. If I could take it back, she spoke once again, I would have never eaten that accursed fruit. My race only knew destruction. I was foolish to think that I could ever be a human. To think that I can be different, she said. Kaguya, you're not a monster. Her eyes snapped towards him the moment he said those words. She wanted to scream at him, how wrong he was. But she couldn't, because deep down, she wanted to be true. She wanted to believe that she was different, like she was more like a human. Naruto's hand reached up, as it rested on her cheek, as he slowly wiped away her tears. I can sense the regret that you hold every day. I know it eats at you, every night, and keeps you awake. But you are not a monster, he said. Would a monster feel regret for their actions? She looked away. Of course they would not. But it could not change as she actually did what she did. Hey, he says, he slowly lifted her face. Time heals all wounds, Kaguya, he said. There are plenty of things that you can do for self-atonement. But just know you're not alone. I'll always be here standing beside you, to help you find your inner peace. Even if it kills me, he said. Tears formed in her eyes once again as she looked into his. The amount of love and caring that he was showing her right now. She practically knocked him down to the ground. I do not deserve you, she said, as her lips landed on his. Time skip. Naruto glanced at their companions and took note of their widened eyes and their fearful expression. It was completely understandable. He thought to himself. Kaguya was not an individual person that a normal shinobi could just stand around like that, merely because of her lack of control of her power. She wasn't aware how little control that she possessed, which was a conundrum in itself. It wasn't like she couldn't control the finer aspect of her abilities. Of course she could, but she struggled to rein in her power, and it was something that frightened people. It would be like he or Sasuke walking around while releasing all of their chakra. He would need to speak to her about it, but given the person who he was, a amused look came on his face. "Is everything okay?" he said. The group of individuals was silent until one of them spoke. A man, a rather important business, prosper, who wanted to expand a railroad business. You didn't feel like power," the man said, as Naruto adopted a clueless expression. "What are you talking about? I felt nothing." The man was taken aback by the Hokage's reaction. That power, it shook the village. He looked towards his associates. I'm not going crazy, am I?" As the others nodded. "Well, whatever it is," said Naruto. "I'm sure it has been handled. Now, let us discuss business. The last train I rode in, I had to save the country I reside in. Let's hope I don't have to do it again. Time skip. Thank you for your time, Hokage-sama. We at Zeta Corp appreciate all that you have done." As Naruto got to his feet and offered the group a smile. "It was my pleasure, and I hope that your business thrives, and we see this use of transportation growing in the coming years." As Naruto led them out once they were gone, he spoke. "Follow them," he said to the empty office. "I don't trust their intentions for 1 second. Take a squad with you and watch over them for the next several months. Bi-weekly updates. And you have full authorization to exterminate them if evidence comes to the surface." After he finished speaking, a shinobi materialized out of thin air in front of the blonde man. The shinobi was rather short and he possessed ebony, spiky hair, and his mask was completely blank. Not like the usual anima mask. "Permission for off-grade recruitment, Hokage-sama. Choose who you wish," said Naruto. "Squad of 4 only, no more." "Yes, Hokage-sama." As the shinobi dematerialized, "They're bold," said a voice, as Sasuke appeared and walked beside Naruto. "To have the gall and audacity to come directly to me," said Naruto as he looked towards the outside. "It seems that the outside world have stopped feared us. The time of shinobi is coming to an end, Naruto. Stagnation will be the death of our kin," said Sasuke. Naruto frowned. "I am well aware," he said. "If you are aware, then you're well aware of what will happen when those rogue Osutskis decide to visit. The world cannot aid, and we will be alone," said Sasuke. "We do not need aid," said Naruto as he looked towards Sasuke. "They will be crushed." The two of them looked at each other until Sasuke spoke up. "We should be the ones searching for them," he said. "We have no idea where to even begin. How do you propose we accomplish that?" "Kaguya lacked the information that we need." "What happened?" said Naruto. An emotional outburst. "Her regret continued to grow," said Naruto. "Do your job," said Sasuke. As Naruto eyebrow twitched. "Don't you have a daughter to raise?" he asked. As Sasuke smirked before he disappeared in a burst of speed. "Damn, Uchiha," said Naruto. Time skip. Kaguya sank into the hot water. A small cloud of fog filled the entire room. She rested her head in a porcelain tub as she released a wonderful sigh. Relaxing, comforting. As she ran her fingers along the walls of her extravagant tub, a gift from her lover, one he was happy to build for her. She appreciated it immensely. Even though it was a bit too big, this tub could fit at least 5 people. He always went out of his way for her, showering her with gifts, trinkets, affections. There was no word that could describe how he was. He was loving, understanding. He was himself. And she absolutely loved that aspect about him. She felt a pair of hands rest on her shoulders. A sigh of appreciation left her as she felt the hands work her shoulders. "Forgive me, my love." My guests took their sweet time explaining all the benefits that Konoha will get from this transaction. They layered their words with honey, but deep down, I could sense a poison at rest beneath the cracks. As Kaguya gripped the tub, as his hands were like a heavenly touch. "I trust everything will work out," she said. Naruto released a chuckle seeing her grip the tub. "I have Sanji watching over it. Everything will be fine, yes," he said. "How are you so good at this?" she asked. As Naruto reminisced, "Lots of practice," he said. "Erasenin took me to a lot of brothels during our training trip." As a thought popped in his head, a smile came on his face as he thought about Erasenin. "He told me that it was for business. I thought he was full of crap." Turns out that brothels indeed carry a lot of information. It was kind of embarrassing at the time, but I got hit on a lot by the women working at those establishments. I was always pretty nervous around women, afraid that I will mess up or say something bad. Asked Naruto chuckle, and since I definitely was not going to partake in their services, I figured I could help in another way. Took some time, but I got pretty good at giving massages. But they always managed to mess with me, he said, always teasing me about where my hands could go, and other nonsense. It was all too much for someone like me at that age, but he said as he leaned down and kissed her neck. It's one of the many skills I possess. Her hand cracked the tub as Naruto started to laugh as she got embarrassed. You're too much, she said. As Naruto caressed her shoulders even more. I could be a lot more if you want me to, he said. Taking advantage of her embarrassing moment, he leaned and placed a kiss on her lip. He started to pull away, but he was stopped as she grasped onto his shirt. As Naruto was caught off guard as he was lifted off his feet and pulled into the hot water. A second passed by as Naruto's surface spluttered a bit. As Naruto wiped the water off his face. Oh, mind your step, my love, she said, the floor. It is quite slippery. As she was making a little joke, but he saw it another way around. You do realize that you're naked and all wet, right? I hold all the power here. Well then, use that power, she said. He did not expect that. It took him just a second to get over it though. As he reached up and picked her up, water cascaded down both their forms as he looked into each other's eyes. Her legs wrapped around his waist, as her face was as red as a tomato, as water dripped off of her. It had been so long since she last showed someone so much of her body. She was on complete display for Naruto, and that got her really nervous. Naruto was seeing her. He was seeing all of her. Embarrassed, anxiety, everything washed over her at that moment. But a few simple words washed it away. You're so beautiful, Kaguya. That washed it all away. As she looked at his loving gaze, the man that knew her inside and out, the man that knew everything about her, the man that she loved, Naruto. I am yours, she whispered in his ear. Time skip. She hid herself very well. A figure in a white cloak said. He possessed a unique horn that wrapped around his head, but she couldn't hide forever. He placed his hand on a mirror-like object that was currently showing a picture of Kaguya's location. She was lying in the arms of a blond man, with the both of them sleeping, mingling with humans again. For shame, Kaguya-heim. A different individual spoke up. He had horns as well, but it was brown horns that went to the back of his head, with a gap in between them. Come, Urashiki. Let us prepare. Urashiki glanced towards his companion before speaking. Prepare? We can crush them easily, Ishiki. Let us just end this now. Ishiki snapped his eyes towards Urashiki, dropping the full might of his chakra on his relative, and end up like Momoshiki and Kinshiki. I will not take this lightly. Do as I say. With that parting statement, Ishiki left the room. Urashiki glared at Ishiki as he left the room. He then turns attention back towards Kaguya and her monkey partner. He stared at him for a long moment as he produced a red chakra hood. How tough can this little shit be, he thought to himself. Time skip. The new age was confusing. Kaguya mused to herself. Her all-seeing eyes took over the village. According to Naruto, the village had expanded nearly 8 times its original size since the end of the Fourth Great Shinobu War. The village that was created on the backbone of peace and prosperity. Humanity could say those words, but sometimes they twisted it to their own beliefs. In the past, children used to kill children for sport after all. Humans, they were self-righteous in themselves. As where her clan could back it up, they could not. They were fragile. Things can easily let them slip away. They have many times, but here she is now. She didn't know why she wanted to protect and nurture humanity. She was hell-bent on doing so. What you thinking about, Haim? She turned to see Naruto, his blue eyes filled with nothing but care and love. He had been watching her for the better part of 30 minutes, allowing her to ponder and think. For that, she appreciated. With his ability to sense negative emotions, one could not blame her for being cross when it comes towards the boundaries of the heart and mind. She truly loved him. She loved him, she adored him. But there were some days that she just wanted to wallow in her misery. But yet, he was always there. A ray of sunshine, Perhaps she was a bit twisted in that regard same way, believing that she should still be punished for the things that she had done. But him, he was just a big source of warm, wonderful happiness and love. She gestured from the joiner on the mountain ledge, which he did so. He plopped himself down, childishly, nearly falling into her lap. But she knew him. He was trying to get a reaction out of her. But she would not entertain his childish antics. A moment of silence passed by, as the recently wed couple steered on towards a massive village. A gentle breeze swept through the monument, dazzling her hair. Kaguya was curious what the average human think was reality. Did they know how inferior they were to shinobis? Perhaps it was a bit cruel, but when you witness your sister being consumed because she was weak, would you wish to be normal? To think that you were weak and inferior? No, never again. But her beloved was staring at her. If she didn't answer soon, she would be on the receiving end of a game that one Ino Yamanaka called 20 questions. How weak you humans are. As he wrapped his arm around her and pulled her back towards him as she leaned against him. There's an interesting line of thought. What makes us so weak, Kaguya-chan, he said. There was no animosity in his voice, no judging, just plain curiosity. She was silent for a moment until she spoke. You break so easily. Choose to be less when you can be so much more. Willingly, choose to be stagnant when you can evolve. It's infuriating to witness, she said. It had been something brewing in her mind for centuries now. She just could not understand it. As Naruto took in the information, until he finally spoke. Because we're humans, he said. As she didn't understand. If you wish to annoy me, then you accomplish your goal, beloved, she said. In any other circumstances, he would have teased her, attacking her with a tongue lashing that would make him a quick, regal talk from her, but this was not time. She was drifting on a dangerous thought, whether she knew it or not. These were the similar thoughts that she got when she was thinking about her worldwide domination and control. He knew that she wouldn't continue her old plan of sucking chocolate of the world, but it was better to be safe than sorry. I meant no disrespect, Haim, he said. As humans, there's no expectation of grandeur. No need to be seen as the strongest or the mightiest. We are born small and fragile, he said. And we die small and fragile, he said. Being human, he paused. He looked toward the small family down below. There's nothing grandiose about it. If you ignore the stimuli around one's birth, you would see that you're similar to us. Despite what some people believe, no one is born with a prophecy or destiny that tell them what they will do in their life. The only person that can tell you what you can do is yourself. No fate, not some god, and certainly not the ancient race of homicidal aliens who are fixated on universal domination. His tone was slightly cheeky at the end, one that caused her lips to twitch a bit. But she could not allow his ego to grow any larger. It would be detrimental. She would not hear the end of it. If you still don't believe me, then look no further than yourself. You're a Osusuki, he said. A race of beings that wish to transcend into something beyond mortal comprehension by swallowing all life in the universe. And yet here you are, married to a lonely human that you perceive to be weak, he said. As Kaguya scoffed at that, you are an outlier in that regard. I'm sure that you would earn the respect of the elders, given how powerful you are, she said. I am not sure if I should be flattered or disrespected by that statement. Be thankful, she said. Oh, look at you, making jokes. I'm proud of you, Haim, said Naruto, as he pulled her in close and started to gently stroke her hair. She did not growl or curse. She was a woman of class. Cease this foolishness at once, she said. Unhand me, you heathen. But despite saying that, he still stroked her hair. Curse you, I say, curse you. Relinquish me, or suffer. As Naruto grabbed her and pulled her into his lap, his other hand ensnaring her. She flushed at the action. What are you doing, Naruto, she said. He ignored her words as he stroked her stomach. Shh, be silent, he said. In normal circumstances, she would not be crowed so easily. Kaguya was still a being that respected power, not to a degree like her clan's men, but when a powerful man, such as her husband, ordered her to do something, she did it. So she remained silent, her cheeks completely red, as his lips brushed against her ear as he spoke quietly. The mighty, powerful goddess brought low by a mere human, he said, as he slowly bit her ear. Her eyes widened as he started to toy with her robes, as he ripped a large hole in her clothing. Cold air wept across her skin. If she thought her heart had been beating rapidly before, then it was racing now. Naruto, she cried. Hands, moving to cover her body, but she soon found that she was unable to move, as Naruto pinned her down. Shh, said Naruto as yin chakra came from his body, as it restricted her. Should I demonstrate how powerful I am for you? In public? No, we cannot, she said, as she saw a devilish grin came on Naruto's face. But guys, be in subscribe right here. If you want to see the next person, do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on the notifications they posted. Remember to share to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, remember to go ahead and check out the brand new series over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto Was a Perfect Experiment, and enjoy that guys. And also I post a brand new episode on this channel of What If Naruto Was One of the Legendary 7, so go ahead and enjoy that as well guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all for your help and support, and remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying and talking about to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.